more is CBS News national security correspondent David Martin. David, we'll get to North Korea in a moment, but first I want to get your take on these new NATO estimates on Russian casualties in Ukraine, somewhere between 7,000 and 15,000 killed in 1 month. Where are the numbers coming from, and what do they suggest to you?
Well, there's a range of estimates, and you could put as much money on the low number, 7,000, as you could on the high number, 15,000. And there's one more very important number, which is the rule of thumb is that for every 1 killed in action, there are 3 wounded in action. So the casualties, both killed and wounded, could be very high, like 45,000 in the first month of combat. They sent in a little more than 150,000. That would be a tremendous loss of their fighting power. And of course, that doesn't count all of the vehicles they have lost, tanks and jeeps and everything in between. And so the question is, how long can Russia keep this up? And there are basically 2 wars going on in Ukraine. One is the frontline battle, in which the Ukrainian armed forces are outclassing the Russians. And that is where the Russians are suffering those casualties. But there's this second war going on, which is the Russian shelling and bombing of civilian areas in which civilians are dying in large numbers. And that war, Ukraine is losing because it really doesn't have a way until it can push, or if it can push Russia further away from its cities to protect its civilians from these bombardments.
To that end, what's the latest on the efforts to keep supplying Ukraine with defensive weapons?
They call it the arsenal of democracy. And in this case, there are multiple democracies, about 15 countries, which are supplying weapons and other types of military material to Ukraine. And it's the U.S. contribution to that is $1 billion. And $1 billion buys a lot of weapons. It buys thousands of Stinger anti-aircraft missiles. It buys thousands of Javelin anti-tank missiles. And these weapons are flown in to air bases in both Poland and Romania, and then driven across the border into Ukraine. And as long as Russia is unable to intercept those convoys going into Ukraine, the Ukrainian armed forces are going to be able to continue their battle.
Let's shift to North Korea now. What can you tell us about that most recent missile test and what response we've seen from South Korea?
Well, South Korea immediately fired off some test launches of its own to show that it has its own missile capabilities. But the importance of this launch was not confined to South Korea. This launch was the launch of an intercontinental ballistic missile, an ICBM. And that is the first time Kim Jong-un has launched a long-range missile capable of reaching the United States since Thanksgiving of 2017, more than 4 years ago. So he is breaking a self-imposed moratorium on the testing of ICBMs. Now, he tested this in a way that does not threaten the United States. This test went almost straight up and straight down and went 3,700 miles up into space, but only traveled 670 miles into the Sea of Japan. And they did that for probably 2 reasons. One is because they didn't want to enrage Japan any more than they had to by overflying Japanese territory. And 2, North Korea just doesn't have a Pacific missile test range. So if it wants to collect data from these tests, it has to keep the missile pretty close to home just so it can pick up all the data from sensors. But the angle at which this missile was fired does not change the fact that it had intercontinental range.
What a moment in time to conduct that test and make that statement. National security correspondent David Martin, thanks as always.
Sure thing.